So what do members of Parliament think about this? Arif Virani is an Ontario Liberal MP. He is in Toronto. In Airdrie, Alberta, Conservative Whip Blake Richards, and Rachel Blaney is the new Democratic Party whip. She's in Campbell River, British Columbia. I'd like to start with you, Mr. Virani. We haven't heard from the Liberals specifically or from your party why you want to make the case that vaccines are mandatory in the House of Commons. So why is it that you're pushing forward for this?
Well, what we're seeking, Katie, is for some leadership and for some consistency. Leadership insofar as we understand that vaccines are the best approach to getting this pandemic under control. Leadership insofar as what we want is elected representatives of the country to demonstrate best practices to other Canadians to follow that lead. And consistency insofar as we do deem it to be inconsistent if we're going to mandate a policy whereby federal civil servants, including those officers and staff that serve the House and help it function, pages, clerks, etc., are required to be vaccinated, but a situation where there'd be a double standard where parliamentarians would be an inconsistency that flies in the face of that public health guidance and that would fly in the face of the credibility and legitimacy that we have in the eyes of Canadians. They don't want double standards for parliamentarians. What they want is consistency, and what they want is to cure some of the cynicism that we saw, including in the most recent election campaign. It seems that there's consistency amongst all parties but one on this very issue. And what we're finding is that the official opposition has some concerns which can be addressed with the fact that if there's a valid medical reason for not being vaccinated, then a test can be taken with an approximate time of entering into the chamber such that all Canadians, including those who are serving the House and helping it function, can feel safe.
But you're talking about medical exemption only, correct? Not people who choose not to be vaccinated.
We're talking about medical exemptions, and those situations are quite rare. And
okay.
We've noted that in terms of how it's been applied around the country.
Okay, I want to ask you one more question, Mr. Virani, before we bring in your Conservative colleague here. We just heard from former senior parliamentary counsel for the House, Stephen Chaplin, and he has said that the way that the vaccine mandate passed yesterday by MPs on the Board of Internal Economy, that they don't actually have the authority to impose something like this. It actually has to be done by the House. So what happens now?
So I think that's a question that remains to be determined in terms of what the House legal counsel and the position that they take, the current House legal counsel. What I would say is that the Board of Internal Economy has been the one that's been directing how the House has been structured throughout this pandemic. So turning to the Board of Internal Economy on this decision is indifferent than what we've done over the previous 18 months. It's very important that people understand that what we're trying to do is what's already in place and what many Canadians are already used to around the country, including in my province of Ontario, where they demonstrate that they're vaccinated, 2 dose vaccinated, and that allows them entry into places of recreation, places such as restaurants, even sports events such as Blue Jays games or hockey games in my city of Toronto.
So I want
something that all Canadians are embracing. We're just wanting all parliamentarians to embrace it as well, to show that consistency and to show that leadership.
I want to jump in here because I want to ask Mr. Richards a question. Your party opposed what happened last night, and we are now hearing from this former senior parliamentary counsel. What is your party going to do next?
Well, obviously, we're going to have to look at this. We do agree that that this is a decision that should be made by the House of Commons. I mean, what we're talking about here is members of Parliament who've been elected by their fellow citizens to represent them in the Parliament. One secret meeting where 7 MPs can make a decision saying that other members of Parliament would not be able to be in the House of Commons to represent their constituents is something that obviously we would have concerns about. And so we believe that with vaccinations or with rapid testing, we can ensure the safety of everyone, but still enable all members of Parliament to be able to participate in the proceedings to deal with the really important issues that we have to address in Canada today. So it's critical that all members of Parliament be able to be a part of that.
So if your party does not support this vaccine mandate because you're concerned that some of your MPs, because your party is the only party that has not fully declared vaccine status for all of your members, why not support a hybrid model of Parliament so perhaps those who have been elected by their citizens, their constituents, can participate in the House of Commons even if they are not willing to abide by the vaccine mandate?
Well, I think we're able to have Parliament sit safely. We can have the committees of Parliament sit safely as well. With whether it be with vaccines or with rapid testing, we can ensure everyone's safety. But we really do believe that it's critically important that all members of Parliament are able to be in the House of Commons and be in those committees to do the work that their constituents have sent them to Parliament to do. When we saw this in the time, there was a period of time where we were using a hybrid system, and you saw it consistently, like one Liberal MP in the House of Commons. You have ministers evading questions in question period by claiming technical challenges. I mean, if we want to make sure that Canadians are being represented properly, we need to do it in person in the House of Commons. Many legislatures across the country are doing that, and they're doing that in a number of provinces with the combination of vaccines or rapid testing. So we know it can be done. Why wouldn't we be able to do it in our Parliament? Ensure that all Canadians have their voice through their member of Parliament there in the House of Commons and in its committees.
But to challenge you on that, why not support the hybrid system here? Because your party is the only party that is not disclosing what the status of your MPs is when it comes to, what the status is when it comes to their COVID vaccine status. This eventually will likely go to a vote in the House of Commons if this decision from the Board of Internal Economy does not stand. It'll go to a vote in the House. There's support from the Liberals. There's support from the NDP. Do you not risk your MPs not being able to actually access Parliament or attend these committees or participate in these things if you don't support the hybrid version of Parliament?
Well, I mean, we continue to advocate that we believe, Parliament, like other workplaces, we can assure the safety of people by making sure that there's either vaccination or a rapid test that is produced. And so either way, we're able to secure the safety of people. But we do believe that Parliament functions best when all members of Parliament are able to be a part of that in its normal function. And we can do that in person. We believe we can do that safely. So we're going to continue to advocate for that. We really believe it's important. There's a lot of very important issues we have to address. Today our leader Aaron O'Toole met with the Prime Minister, and he encouraged him to stop using vaccines as a political wedge tool. Instead, let's work on issues that we can work on together, such as addressing vaccine hesitancy. So we've got some ideas we'd like to put forward before the House of Commons on that, but there's other issues, economic challenges we face. Look at the inflation numbers. We need to be addressing those because that has a huge impact on the family budgets of many Canadians. So if we can get back in the House of Commons safely, we believe we can with rapid testing or with vaccines, and make sure that every member of Parliament is able to have their voice on behalf of their constituents so that we can address those critically important issues that we need to address.
Ms. Blaney, I want to pick up on a point that Mr. Richards made. Do you think it's good enough for MPs to have rapid testing before entering, MPs or staff, have rapid testing before entering the House? Is that good enough for you?
It's not good enough for me, and I'll tell you why. The reality is Canadians across this country are having to modify their whole lives. We don't know who is going home to children under 12 that cannot be vaccinated. We don't know who has loved ones that may be in a care facility that they're trying to visit. This is just upping the risk for all parliamentarians and more importantly, the people that work there. And the other question that I have for Mr. Richards is who is going to be paying for these continuous rapid tests? They cost a significant amount of money. And if we're going to be asking members of Parliament who will not disclose if they've been vaccinated or not to take this again and again, I don't think it's appropriate that the taxpayer is on the line for that. If other Canadians make the decision not to get vaccinated and they can't participate in different activities, why should parliamentarians be able to? It doesn't make sense and it's not fair. We have to be accountable to Canadians as leaders of this country. Getting vaccinated is part of that leadership, and asking Canadians to pay for parliamentarians to get tested with rapid tests because they don't want to get what they need to do, which is get the vaccination, I don't think that's appropriate.
Mr. Richards, I'm going to go back to you for one last question here. The Bloc, the NDP, the Greens, and the Liberals have all disclosed to CBC News that all of their members of Parliament have been fully vaccinated. The Conservatives are the only party that has not. Why not just have members disclose, and why not make it a mandatory policy to be double vaccinated to be on the team?
Well, I mean, I think it's up to each individual Canadian, members of Parliament included, to determine whether they want to disclose their personal health information. But on this question of rapid testing, what we're advocating here for here is exactly the same thing we're advocating for all Canadians to be able to do. We encourage and we believe vaccines are an incredibly important tool, and we encourage all Canadians to be vaccinated. But those who are not, there is also an alternative of rapid testing. We're advocating the exact same thing for all Canadians as we think for members of Parliament. We think that doing that, we can ensure people can work safely, and we need to address the important issues of Canadians. And I think it's important that all members of Parliament have a voice on behalf of their constituents to be able to do just that.
To jump in on Rachel's point, Ms. Blaney's point, who's going to pay for the rapid testing?
Well, those are details that certainly can be worked out. I mean, I'm open to discussions about.
Well,
at the end of the day,
Katie,
what we need to have is the option for people to be vaccinated or rapid tested so we can ensure safety, and we can make sure that all members of Parliament are able to actually have a voice on behalf of their constituents. And that's the key part of this.
Ms. Blaney, you're shaking your head, and Mr. Virani, you want to jump in there? I'll let you have a word in.
Sure. Well, I just think you can see the fits and contortions that Mr. Richards is trying to work through in terms of even just responding to that question. Conservatives generally stand for fiscal prudence. The fact that he can't answer who would pay for it. The fact that he can't answer who would pay for it speaks to the fact that the policy is incoherent. He stated earlier that the legislature over the past 18 months has been dysfunctional, I think was the word that he used, in terms of people evading questions. I reject that categorically, but even if you pursue that, the logic in the Conservatives' argument is flawed. They've been begging for a return to Parliament. We are working towards a return to Parliament that is consistent with what Canadians are expected to do around the country. The only people, in fact, the only Conservatives that are unable to grasp this concept, because it's only the federal Conservatives that are failing to show this leadership, is Erin O'Toole's party. Premiers such as Doug Ford in my province and premiers out east who are Conservatives have embraced this and have said the legislature is open for business as long as you are vaccinated. The only objection is not an ideological one, but a medical one. Until Mr. Richards and his party can embrace that, there's going to be an issue with their ability to participate and really meet the needs of their constituents, which he avowedly is there to profess.
I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to give Mr. Richards 10 seconds to respond, more than 10 seconds to respond. But Mr. Richards, can you respond here, and then we got to wrap it up?
Well, I mean, clearly, we all believe that all members of Parliament should be able to participate. So if that's the case, then why can't we enable that? Vaccines.
But isn't the hybrid Parliament the answer to that? Is that not the hybrid answer to that?
I don't believe it is. I don't believe it is. Vaccines or rapid testing would enable all members of Parliament to be safely in the House of Commons, doing the jobs that we need to do on behalf of Canadians, and that is really what would allow us to address the important issues that we need to address for Canadians. I mean, there are a lot of issues. I talked about vaccine hesitance.
All right, I got to jump in here. I got to wrap it up. We've already gone way over time, but obviously there's going to be a lot more debate on and discussion on this in the days to come. I want to thank all three of you for giving us some of your time on this very busy day. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.